guys, happy Friday. I am back today to teach you how to make an Oreo cookie dump cobbler. Super easy, super delicious, and these are the ingredients that you are going to need. You will need 5 tablespoons of butter, 12 to 15 Oreo cookies that will eventually be crushed. You'll need 1.5 cups of self-rising flour. That's important. All-purpose flour will not work for this recipe. So please don't try to sub that. You will need 3/4 cup of milk, 1 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1.5 cups of brown sugar, and then you will also need 1.5 cups of hot water. That hot water does not need to be boiling. It just needs to be hot to the touch. So go ahead and gather up those ingredients, and I will be back to show you how we make it. Okay, so Oreo cookie dump cobbler. Super easy, just a few steps. The very first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your 5 tablespoons of butter and you're just gonna cube it. Just kind of chop it apart as best you can. And you're gonna be putting this all into a 13 by 9 pan. And it doesn't matter if it's a glass pan, if it's a aluminum pan, whatever it is that you have, it just needs to be the 9 by 13 size. And what you're going to do is you're going to be putting this butter in a preheated oven at 350 degrees. You just want it to melt. So I'm going to kind of spread it out a little bit all over the pan, and we're just going to stick it in the oven, and I would guess a couple minutes at most is all you will need to melt it. So I'm going to go ahead and melt this. Come back to that. And while we're waiting on that to melt, I put my Oreos in a gallon-size Ziploc bag, and we're gonna work on crushing these. You can do it with your hands, you can do it with a rolling pin, anything you've got that'll help you crush it. You don't want to do anything too hard that'll puncture the bag, because then you'll have Oreos all over the place. We don't want to mess. So you're just getting them to the point where they're not whole cookies, but you also don't want them to be a powder. So just get them to the point where they are just broken into pieces that will be able to be part of a cobbler. Not too big, not too small, and you should be good to go. So they should look something like that. Close it up so you guys can see that a little bit. Something like that. And then we'll go ahead and set this bag aside, and this will be sprinkled over that melted butter in the pan that I'm going to check on here in just 1 second. We'll see what we're looking at. All right, it's getting there. Okay, so we're going to set the Oreos to the side, and the next thing you're going to need is a mixing bowl. And in that mixing bowl, we're going to be putting our 1.5 cups of self-rising flour. So I'm going to do that first. It can be messy sometimes, so we do this over the bowl. And it's totally fine if a little bit goes in there. Okay, so 1.5 cups of self-rising flour. Here's my half. Go ahead and put that in. And then you want your 3/4 cup, I'm sorry, yes, 3/4 cup of milk. So we'll do this 3 times. This is all going to be blended together, so it doesn't really matter what order you do it in. This might be a little backwards at the moment. You can probably do all your dry ingredients first if you'd like, but like I said, it doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to do our 1 cup of sugar. 1 cup of sugar, and then our 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And we are just going to mix this together. Notice the only thing I did not add is the brown sugar. The brown sugar and the hot water are the last 2 things we're going to be doing, and that's going to be on the top of our cobbler. So we don't want to overmix. We just want to get this blended. Try to get some of the clumps out that the flour will make. And you should have something that looks somewhat like this. Again, don't overmix. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Just get the clumps out. Let me check on our pan again. All right, it looks like we are melted. So I'm gonna get this out and show you what we'll do with those Oreos. So here's our pan with the melted butter. And you're gonna take that bag of Oreos that you had, and you are just going to sprinkle the crumbles of Oreos all on the bottom. Try to do it as evenly as you can, kind of in a single layer. And you should really be trying to cover all the parts where the butter is. Make sure it's kind of spread evenly. Put some a little bit over here. And so you should be looking something like this. Now, the mix that we had from before, go ahead and stir that up again. Just make sure that you got it all on the bottom. Notice I'm not using a hand mixer or a stand mixer or anything like that. This is very easily done with just a wooden spoon spatula. Okay. Now you're going to take this and we're going to pour it over top. Again, as evenly as you can. The good thing about this is it's called a dump cobbler, which means everything just gets dumped and you don't have to worry about it being perfect. You just have to worry about having the right ingredients and making sure it goes in the right way. So that's the beauty of doing something that's titled dump cake. We know that it all just gets dumped in one place and it's going to taste delicious no matter what. So this is what you should be looking like. Get this bowl out of the way so you guys can see it. Okay, so that's what you should look like right now. Then you're going to take that 1.5 cups of brown sugar and you're going to be sprinkling it over the top. You're going to be covering all of these parts we just put in with our milk and flour and sugar mixture. And you're just covering. This is your last layer that is then going to be coated with the hot water over top. And then we're going to stick it in the oven. So I'll tell you while I'm doing this, again, your oven should have already been at 350 for melting the butter. It needs to be continue to be at 350, and this is going to go in the oven for 35 minutes. You do not need to cover it. It can go in just like this, 35 minutes, and then I would let it sit on your counter for about 5 to 10 minutes before you start to cut it. Give it some time to set a little bit, and then you should be good to go. All right, so it looks like this. Okay guys, here's our last step. I have 1.5 cups of hot water, and all I'm gonna do is pour it over top of the brown sugar. I know, seems really strange, but I promise we're doing the right thing here. So this is what you should be looking at. Layer of water over the top. Then this entire thing is going to go right into your oven, just like this, and you're baking for 35 minutes. Again, make sure you take it out and let it sit on the counter for about 5 to 10 minutes before you start to cut into it. And I will be back to show you what it looks like at the end. All right, here's our final product. So as you can see, it's kind of a golden brown crisp over the top. And as you're watching it in the oven, I was looking at it a couple times just to be sure that it was actually cooking all the way. You will see a few bubbles start to pop up, and that will tell you that it's not completely cooked yet. So this one took the full 35 minutes, and now I have it out to sit for 5 to 10, and you can serve it with whipped cream or even some ice cream if you'd like. That's it. Happy Friday, and I will see you guys next week.